Hello and welcome to the first annual CEO podcast. I'm Ev Dingus. I'm accompanied here by a Happy Cloud, Dutch Krampus, maybe Swift Ranger, and I heard Zelius was gonna pop in. How's it going, guys?
It's
Yo,
going well, dude.
yo.
All right,
How about
Dutch.
you, Evan?
Oh,
How about yourself?
It's going just fantastic. I can't talk today. Dutch,
How's everyone's weekend?
I was gonna
I wanna
ask
hear
you the
it.
same thing.
How's the solo queue been? Hopping
Today's
in
my
that
first
new
day
season?
of solo queue. On my main, I've lost every game,
Oof.
which kind of sucks. But on my Smurf, I went 9-1 placements,
Oh,
which was
wow.
nice. And then I just won 2 games, so that account is not in losers queue.
Yeah.
But the
is
games
it
on
one
my
of
main
those-
were good. I would say I kind of got support gapped in one of the games where this Alistair was just 1v9. He's like diving every single tower at level 3.
Mm.
Yeah, the Alistar's been crazy. Is it one of those instances where you're like, you have like the nerves on your main, and then like you don't care, so you just play better on the Smurf, or not really?
No, I actually think I played pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't really. The nerves don't affect me. It's just unlucky,
Yeah.
I guess. Like I have been trying to dodge more in solo queue this season
For sure.
because your MMR is more important than your LP. But yeah, it's just one of those games where like I had a Zillion support versus an Alistar support, right? So it was not looking good.
Yeah.
But
So like when you see someone lock in like a Sivir jungle or something like that, not to
yeah,
like
I
point
am
fingers or
surprised you still have an account, Evan. I would have reported your ass
Dude,
so fast.
every game of Sivir Jungle I've played, I've popped off. I both 2 of the 3 games I had my top laner just giga feed, and then one other game was just a bad game all around.
Which is wild because Sivir, like a Sivir jungle or something like that, is like one of those instances where that's when I dodge. You know, if I see something
Oh,
like that. But
the funny part is,
it's
I
kinda
would
working out. For me.
if I was playing ADC Sivir and they picked like I don't know Lucian Jungle, I would instantly dodge that game
Yeah.
just because it seems super troll.
And speaking of people you might want to dodge, just kidding. But no, we have Zelius hopping in here. A little late to
Hello.
the game, but
Hello,
not too late to
Christopher.
get started.
How's it going?
Good.
Going well.
Good. Yeah.
Glad
So,
to hear.
so
I just wanted to
let's,
ask you guys real quick before we get into the CEO part of the CEO podcast. What are your thoughts? Because we're talking about solo queue here, and a lot of people can relate. What are your guys' thoughts on like the meta in solo queue right now? Like, do you like it? Do you dislike it? I've talked to a few different people, and some people, they love it, and some people are not super into it. I just wanted to get your thoughts.
See, I like what I'm good at. It's pretty basic, right? If I'm good at it, then I like it. I'm not good at assassins. Assassins are in meta. I'm not very good at melee mids. Melee mids are in meta. Control mages are objective for solo queue, by the way. I'm not saying in fives. In fives, I still think control mages are broken, but I don't think that control mages can get much weaker solo queue standards right now.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I think
not
a
my
few-
exact forte, but it's still fun. It's fun seeing like my Akali top pop off, you know.
There's a few control mages that are still pretty strong in solo queue, but yeah, overall,
Syndra and Ori will always be strong, but like
like a Nivea, Victor, Seraphine, those champs are still, I think, are very strong in solo queue. I think Victor especially got like, he's a champ I really like, and I'm very happy that they did that change where they kind of did this to a Nivea too, where they wanted to like incentivize them to be able to fight early, because those champs were like, I'm just gonna sit mid and never roam and do anything, and now Victor like gets closer to his upgrade. So if you get in like a skirmish at a crab, right, you get like 3 takedowns, you can have like your E upgrade laser by like level 7, which is crazy. So I like that. I hate how OP jungle is, dude. I'm so over jungle this meta. I was over it last meta, but I'm over it this meta too.
I didn't like it in either meta, but I felt that like the end of last season, it didn't matter if my jungler was just utter dog poop, you know. This season, it's jungle differential, 100% of the time.
Yeah, I feel like I'm taking a lot of the oxygen in the room, but I think it's like honestly so hard to win if your jungler is worse than the enemy jungler. Like I feel like the jungle is so strong. They're like you can play Hecarim and get like 10 CS a minute, impact all the lanes. And as mid, I think mid's role in this meta is to play for jungle like pretty heavily. So it obviously sucks when the jungler is your jungler is a monkey.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sorry. Don't want to interrupt too much the discussion we're having, but we are brought in with our fifth member, which is Swift Ranger. If he wants to say hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
But yeah,
Sorry.
I have not been playing solo queue, so I've been watching. I've just been kind of avoiding it a little bit. I always tend to like start my placements and start playing ranked a little late into the season. Not like actually late, but usually like wait a few weeks to like things settle out and kind of get a read on it. But I've been watching, like been super into the lock-in tournament for LCS. So I've been watching, and LEC as well. So I've been watching a ton of like competitive vibes and been watching all the LBLCS games on. So I've been watching like significantly more League than actually playing solo queue, which is nice in a way, but also kind of looking forward to it, especially with like some of my champions being semi-meta, even though I'm a top laner, not a jungler. But yeah, the jungle meta is like kind of crazy. The item changes definitely. There were a lot of like predictions and things were like buffed, especially like tanks being super prevalent early on in the changes, but now it's kind of evened out and it's kind of back to like this carry heavy jungle meta, which is interesting but less fun if you're stuck in the top lane, I think sometimes.
It's actually oh yes, sorry Joe, I was gonna say it's kind of like the same meta as last year, right?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah,
I
it
know,
feels like
except it's way worse.
World's
like-
meta
yeah.
2.0.
yeah.
It's like the same thing. So like I kind of had the opposite. Like you know how you like kind of said you waited for your placements. I was off of work for like 3 days, so I knocked out like the placements on literally all my accounts in like 2 days. I think it was like 60 or 70 games of solo queue in like like 4 or 5 days.
Damn.
Yeah, it was not like a good experience. A lot of my friends, Happy Cloud Zellius and other people that I talk to quite a bit when I'm playing and stuff. I lost a ton of games. I mean, a ton of games. I don't think I had a single one of my. I had one account go 6-4, and then almost every other one of them, or two accounts went 6-4. I think my main, which is my lowest ranked account, went like 3-7. I had one I think went like 4-6. Like I mean I was losing all kinds of games. Like yeah, I really don't. I think top lane right now, like it just feels really, really isolated. Like it's super hard for me to keep relevant in terms of EXP, as well as impact the map elsewhere, unless like everything that I do elsewhere like results in like a big win, right? Like if I TP bot, like I better be getting like a kill or two. If I roam mid, like I better be like getting some gold from somewhere, and if I just stay top, like I feel like sometimes if the jungler wants to, they can pretty much take me out of the game for free. Well, not for free, but you know what I'm saying? Like a jungler can camp top to the point where you're just not relevant in the game whatsoever for the rest of the game, without really sacrificing their income. So yeah, that was kind of my experience, but it's been going better. Won quite a bit. Climbed almost all of my accounts have gone up now. My main went from like plat 2 to like plat 4. Now it's almost back to plat 2. So we're getting there. We're getting there. I might get the blue border again this year. We'll see what happens.
How many games do you guys usually knock out like a season? Do you think you'll play similar to how you did last season, or?
I'll probably play more than I played last season. So I finished with I think 3 accounts in Diamond, and I played probably close to 1,000 games of solo queue last season, maybe a little bit more, across like several accounts. So yeah, around in there. I'll probably play more. I think. I don't know. I have a little bit more time. I have a little bit better schedule than I did at the beginning of last year, so I might be able to put in more games, and I'm enjoying playing solo queue more this year. Win or lose, like I have a pretty fun time. Like you really can't make up some of the stories you run into. Yeah.
Do you play top in every account that you play on?
Yeah, I played mid for a while, like the middle of last season. But yeah, I play top almost pretty much exclusively. Some ADC if I like really get bored, but yeah, usually it's top on everything.
I think for me it will be dependent on COVID still. I played a lot more solo queue last year than I ever did, and that's because I was home all day and I couldn't go out and do anything.
Yeah.
Because COVID's still going on, but I would say like kind of dying down. Ideally, you know, hopefully it will be open. I'll have more free weekends, so I won't be grinding as much solo queue. But I'm with Ranger. I like regardless of how much complaining I do, I've been having a lot of fun. A lot of the champs in the meta I really enjoy. Solo queue is great for me because I'm like a sweaty melee mid player, so I really like all the champs. Like I've been absolutely loving Yone and absolutely loving like Silas, and I've been playing a lot more of the new champ, trying Viego mid, and I think he's very good as well. So it's been fun. I will play on my free time, obviously, but we'll have to see.
Where do you guys think the new champ Viego is gonna slot in as far as like strength wise? How are you feeling about the release?
I think he is insane, dude.
He's
so
wild,
I've played
dude.
like
He's
7 or
crazy.
8 games of him now, and I've only played him mid and one game top, and so I don't know how good his jungle is.
Yeah.
But mid, he kind of reminds me of like old Talia almost, because he doesn't have as good wave clear, but he trades the wave clear for a sustain. I'm gonna hit you with my nerdy league facts. So his Q at level 1, so the way he works is if you use an ability, your Q passive, if it hits anyone, your next auto on them, he'll do like a double auto, and the second auto I think does a little bit reduced damage, but heals you for like 18 at level 1, right?
Ooh.
So if you heal 18 off 6 creeps, right, plus Doran shield, it's very like every single wave, and you don't have mana, so he just has like insane sustain, and I think he has like really good dueling. And then his roaming is really good because of his mist ability, where he like throws kind of like an Akali shroud at the it's very small, but if it hits a wall, it does like the Kiana ult where it like starts traveling along the wall, and he gets attack speed while in it. So the way I've been playing him is you just like out sustain the people and poke them out, and then when you have a good roam timing, you have really strong roams. You can play for your jungle, and then he does a lot of damage. And in team fights, he just feels really fun to pop off with. Like he has like a worse pike ult. It's not like an it has like a missing health damage, but it's not that much. But it's like a blink. But then when someone's dead, you know, his passive, his whole gimmick is he can like jump in them and he heals. So you can have a game where you're like, kill the Cho'Gath, and you jump in the Cho'Gath and you knock someone up and silence them, and then you kill that person, and now you're Samira, and you jump in the middle and you do your Woodwall, and then you jump in Pike, you know, and you're just popping off, and it feels so like it's very satisfying. And he feels really strong to me. Like I think I've only lost a game on him. So
He's wild. I played against him yesterday like 6 times. He was in the jungle primarily. I played against him top once, but I was Aatrox, so I killed him like 30 times. But yeah, in the jungle, like he seems to. I think the most popular build is rushing Bork into either like a Gale Force or a Triforce is what I saw the most. Like his mid game team fighting is like once he finishes Bork, like he's nuts. He does a ton of damage. He's really hard to lock down. I think my biggest pet peeve is that when he like when he kills somebody he's transforming, he becomes untargetable. So if he's like low health, all of a sudden you just can't target him for what I feel is a far too long of a time. But yeah, he's really strong. I think he's pretty effective. I'm not sure how good he is in lane. I haven't really played too much against it, or as it, so I don't really know for sure. But yeah, in jungle he seems to check out pretty good. He seems to be able to keep up in farm pretty well, and like I said, his skirmishing's really strong. His ganks are pretty good. And like, yeah, he does some wild stuff.
I'll tell you this much. I played one game of Viego today. I'm 0-1 on Vigo, so he can't be that.
He can't be that.
Can't be that
He's
good,
trash.
right?
Yeah. With
I think
champs like
also
this,
he'll like. Oh, sorry. But one thing I'll say is like with any new champ, like figuring out what they do, like how to play them, but also how to play against them is a big thing. And I don't think his kit's very complicated. So when people realize like how he works, he might get worse, right? Or he might get better. I think I think Wright's done a pretty good job of releasing champs that have like decently high skill floors recently. So it's cool that they can like, there's still a lot to unlock with the champ.
yeah, with like Lilia and stuff like that too. I guess Set was like overtuned, and Samira as well. But there's been definitely a few releases. Rel seems in a pretty solid state, like slots in specific comps and stuff like that. They've been doing a pretty good job of like at least coming out with a champion that's semi-balanced, but maybe giving people time to figure it out, or like tweaking the numbers a little bit after. But yeah, I'm really curious to see like where Vigo ends up as far as roles, like if he ends up being like this triple flex, or if he just ends up just slotting only in one role. So really curious to see like how that develops with a champion like this. I think it's really cool when like people are still figuring out and it's not a for sure thing. Like with certain champs, they get like Rel, they get released and it's support and it's very unlikely to like slot in other lanes. But it's cool when you get to see one and you're like not really sure where it's going to end up.
Yeah, I agree. I think Wright's done a pretty good job. Besides maybe Samira was like horrendously overtuned, right? But I think they've done a good job, releasing. And I'm like a huge Wright shill, so I'm actually excited for like all the lore implications in terms of like this whole year is kind of based off this story of the Ruined King.
Yep.
I assume we're gonna get his lover as like one of the champs, and then like the next 3 champs are all part of the story, so it should be really cool.
And they're making another game too related to this storyline, correct?
So they're producing it. They're not making it. This one company that made like I forgot the name of the game, but yeah, it's like a turn-based RPG, I think. It's kind of like a looting game as well. Ruined King. So that should be fun. And then I really like the card game, so I think they're gonna do a lot of cool stuff with that as well. So I'm pretty excited.
Should be a good year. Sweet. So without further ado, unless we have any last points on solo queue, we should kind of hop into CEO a little bit and kind of hear your opinions. I mean, we have a pretty good cast of players here that have like done multiple seasons in LBLCS, and like you all are I think everyone here is on a different team too. So we have a pretty good diversity of opinions, I think, as far as like different players and stuff like that. How I guess I'll start with like a general question, and I guess we'll get more specific and see where it goes after that. But how have you guys been feeling about the CEO league, like in general, as far as like the teams, like the balancing? Do you think there's like clear people ahead, or do you think it's generally pretty even? As far as stats, like it looks pretty even points wise, but I'm curious to see if like your opinions differ from what I'm seeing on paper.
I can take that first if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I think that this is probably one of the more competitive seasons, or at least it looks like. I know my team has watched a lot of the games that people played, and like watched like scrims and stuff like that. It seems like most of the teams are like pretty competitive. It looks like there's nobody that's like clearly way below level or like clearly way better than everyone else. It feels like the games are all going to be pretty competitive this season, which I think is going to be really good. I think it's going to be really fun. Because I think last year was like a little less so. It felt like there was only like 3 or 4 teams that were really kind of just murdering everyone. And then like teams that weren't doing very well and stuff like that for a variety of reasons. But I think that this season, like I think we're in a pretty good spot. I think it'll be really competitive. Pretty excited to see how it goes going forward.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's really competitive, actually. I think all the teams are like taking games off each other, and there's a lot of like, I feel like every year CEO, there's always like a pretty big divide. And although I haven't gotten a chance to see every single team, I've seen most of them, and I think all of them are like pretty close in skill level. And also, I think there's a decent amount of clashing styles, which is fun. Like, I think just even like the downward and upward trends play fairly differently, and then there's the Naughty Boys, and then Five Drinks In. These teams, like, they all play different styles, different champs. They have players that have different skills, so it's really fun. Definitely a team I want to see streamed is the CLG team. I think we've scrimmed them, and I think they're really good. So they're definitely a team to look out for. But overall, yeah, I'm very happy with the CEO League this year. I think it's going to be a banger.
Yeah, and I just feel like in general compared to last year, I look at all these teams and I don't really see one that's not committed, right? Like last year we had 5 teams drop out, which is kind of a big deal when you only have 10 teams. So that's exciting. Hopefully we get a full league, a full season, and some good playoffs, but who knows?
Yeah, I think it's hard to like keep people in CEO because I think when you get to the ranking of CEO, right, where you could have up to like potentially a challenger player, a lot of those players I think look towards like money leagues or even amateur.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that we have like such a big community here, and a lot of these players just want to come in and battle it out, and it's fun, I think, for all the different divisions. I cast a lot of the commercial and executive games, and I think it's fun to see a lot of the same viewers watching CEO and getting a chance to like see the higher level of play, and then you get the chance to potentially like move up. Like on Chris's team, they have Tarded moved up, right, and he has done pretty well for himself, I think, and so stuff like that I think is really cool. So
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. As far as like CEO, I think my opinion about that is like retention. I like to see the retention this season. It's pretty awesome to see. Everyone seems like committed to it, and like teams I think are pretty well balanced. But yeah, I think sometimes it gets tough for people playing at that level to like commit maybe to like something that's a bit more of a like branded as a more for fun league. Just because at that point, like Diamond and higher, like you have the potential to like be a like quote unquote serious player, you know what I mean? Like especially like Masters, Grandmasters, Challenger, like all that. And high diamond. Like a lot of people. I know some people in here actually like are streamers. They're maybe playing in other leagues, other tournaments, and stuff like that. So sometimes it might get difficult to like keep people in teams, especially if teams like aren't doing well or like maybe they're like not at the top of the game. But it's really good to see CEO like coming like doing a really good job this season so far, because last season was a little shaky. But I think that the great part about the LBLCS is that every season like there's feedback that comes back from the people playing in it, and there's like continual conversations that happened last season to kind of like at least get something resulted in CEO. And then this season I think it's looking really good as far as teams, like the number of teams and like the number of like committed teams is definitely up there. And I think just because people kind of split up and reshuffled too, it seems like that may have helped just have like a solid core like going into it, and then pulling in some new teams from there. So
yeah, I think it's cool. We have a lot of teams like the Glue Eaters, for instance, who are 2 separate teams now, and the combination of like a bunch of other teams, and that's definitely strengthening the player base of CEO. And yeah, overall, I think it's really awesome, and I'm hoping that more people tune in and tell their friends, and we get even more people. Obviously, we'll never have as much as like commercial and executive, which makes sense, right? It's like more a higher player base, but it's been awesome. Yeah, like I said, I'm excited to play it. There's not one team where I'm like, oh, this is going to be a freebie, or this is going to be boring. Every team I think is pretty good and awesome. And I do think it's cool. CEO having less teams is nice because it does allow more of the CEO games to be streamed. Because I do know, like last year, that was something that a lot of the CEO players were upset about. And it wasn't just like they were not being streamed because they were choosing not to stream them. It's like, you can't stream a game when it's like, well, I'm going to stream this game, but this team dropped out, So it's been cool to be able to get like a couple CEO games a week and really show off our higher tier players. So
For sure. Yeah, are there any? I mean, I know. I think Happy Cloud mentioned that he was like looking out for CLG. Like, if besides your own team, obviously, do you guys have any teams that you're particularly like think are going to end up high in the standings? Are going to end up being like for sure playoff contenders? Because right now it's like for people not in the league, it might be hard to like know which teams are the ones to look out for. Do you think there's? I mean, we were just talking about how like it's pretty like well spread and even right now, but like, are there any predictions as far as like maybe a team that you're looking out for?
So I'll jump on this one. I think there's 10 teams in CEO and 8 make it to playoffs. So it's hard to say the 2 teams that won't make it. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
It's so tight, right? Like we have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying like top, like as far as like give me like a top, that you think will end up in top 3.
I was getting there. All right.
Sorry.
No, I think the 2 that stand out right here from just looking at it is the Upwards Trend and Naughty Boys. I think Naughty Boys won last season. It was kind of a scuffed season, but I mean, they won the season, right? They played really well. With only 1 roster change, I think they're going to be up there, top 4, top 3. Upwards Trend, I forget which one of you, Zach or Ranger, is on that one, but yeah. So you have Dent and Dozen, right? And that's right?
Yes.
Me, Dent,
Dozen, and then like Vizzy
and Berserk OG.
Yeah, so like your top side of the map is insane. Like easily, I would argue, best in the league. So seeing them middle of the pack, I think they're definitely gonna be top 3 as well. Those are the 3. I think the 2 Trends and Naughty Boys up top 3. That's my prediction. But I mean, a lot of these teams are new, right? So like, I have no idea. I haven't seen them play enough. I just don't know.
You're probably gonna rethink the Naughty Boys top 3 when you hear about the full AP Kai'Sa mid as well.
Well, I think 5 drinks in might not make the playoffs once I start playing Sivir Jungle. So
I think 5 drinks in might not make playoffs, regardless of who you play jungle.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's my take. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for me, like, I think Acclivity's really good, or can be. The CLG team I watched play, they're really good as well. I want to see Blubbalicious. I watched. I heard that they're pretty good, and I looked at their match history or whatever, on results, and it looked like they had some pretty cool stuff going on. So I'd like to see them play as well. I don't know who's gonna be top 3, man. Like one thing that has happened in a couple of the different seasons that I've played in, at least, is like teams will start off the season really, really strong. Beating everybody, and then towards the end, I mean, it could take just as much as like, their jungler's best champion being like horrible. You know what I mean? Then instead of having to ban it now or whatever, or like, auto losing if you let it through, like now it just doesn't have to be touched in draft because it can't be, right?
Yeah, now you don't even ban Talia.
Yeah.
It's just worthless. Julie's bad on every other champ. Sorry.
Yeah, right. I don't know if you've seen Julie's Hecarim, but it's pretty insane. But yeah, so like stuff like that can happen. So it's really hard to say with 8 teams going into playoffs. It can be all over the place. I think pretty much every year or every season that I've been in so far, like a 5th or a 4th seed has won like 3 out of the 4 seasons. Like they'll go into playoffs like the 3rd or 4th seed, 5th seed, and end up winning the whole thing. So I mean, a lot can happen between here and there. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, especially with like 5 brand new teams, like it's so hard to say what's gonna happen, and it's pretty like going into playoffs is gonna be super exciting. You never know.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I love series play. It's so fun.
Oh hell yeah! No, never know what's gonna happen.
Maybe even Sivir Jungle. You never know.
Well,
we play you guys, I think, next week. I'll leave it up.
Okay.
I'll leave it up.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Next week is
I'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you at Red Buff, man.
Got it.
Next
So
week is
far-
Battle of the Trends, actually.
Oh,
is
yeah.
it?
Be
Oh, that's
Yeah.
hype.
Ooh.
Do we know what day that's on?
I don't
We
think
haven't
we've
scheduled it yet.
Okay. Because that's one of those games that I've like for sure wanted to watch just because of the lore attached to it, you know?
Of course, yeah.
Like, the upward versus downward.
Yeah, I think you guys
Zach's
are
got to
guaranteed
play
to-
some solo queue first so that he can not be tilted for his games that week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have a bye this week, and then the next week we play.
Oh,
So
sure. Okay, so we play somebody else because we had a bye this week, so we
you guys
play.
play Naughty Boys. No.
We already played him.
Oh, then I
Smashed
don't know
him.
who you
Smashed
play.
him actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
you know what got smashed? My PayPal, dude. Went from 0 to 100. And all I had to do was go 0 and 4 and say, "Oh man, nice try, guy."
Bondi says you guys play PUD. PUD. I don't know who the heck that PUD is, but
Performance unenhanced ducks.
I believe that's the
Oh,
team that
yeah.
we went 2-1 with. We've scrimmed them once before. New team. They're looking pretty good. I think solid once they get more playtime.
Okay, so we'll probably crush him if 5 drinks in. Okay, so all right, sounds good.
can we potentially move to this very nice play rate graph that was sent to me?
Yeah,
And the massive outlier, the number 1 champ, who's only lost a game. I didn't even realize this. Olaf is 10-1 in the CEO League. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
look at the Olaf players we have. I mean, like
What?
the players that are playing him are really good at the champion and been kind of playing him before he's been broken, right? So we had like Julie played him. I think Titan played him.
York Hunt,
Yeah, so
one of the best.
You want to know which
junglers.
team lost with him? I did the stat sheet for this. You want to know which team lost?
Who?
It's one of the people. It's one of the teams that is in this podcast right now.
Oh wait, it's the Naughty Boys
It is.
because they
Because my
Late invaded
jungler
the
smited at
blue.
900 HP.
late invaded the blue. They all went over, got knocked up, missmited the blue. Hecarim gets the blue and then kills them all.
No,
and they
no,
lose
no.
The game.
I'm gonna pin some blame here. Okay, I'm gonna be a little toxic towards
Yeah,
my teammate,
defend
whom I
yourself
love
because
very
I put
much.
you on the hot seat.
But you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and attack him here. He ran in before our ADC could get to the blast plant. He hit himself and our support over the blast plant without the ADC. He smited for health, quote unquote, at 900, despite not yet being hit by any enemy champions. And then Hecarim hit level 2 and took over.
Yeah.
So in our
So-
defense and in Olaf's defense, jungle gap.
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys? So like, Olaf was also banned in so many of the games that he was not pretty much all, not all, but almost every game that he wasn't picked, he was banned. And with Gore Drinker, like, is Olaf just OP busted? Because we see him. I've been seeing him in pro play a ton as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous. Like
he's just way too strong. So hard to fight him in the mid game, which is
Yeah.
like where a lot of important fights happen. So like he's just such a easy champion to pivot off of. Like if you have an Olaf, like you can pretty much guarantee that he's going to be at least even in farm, if not ahead.
I
It's
also think
really-
he scales. That's
yeah,
the
he
issue.
scales
That's the difference.
just fine. Yeah, he scales
Because
just
he used
fine
to
now.
fall off, right? That's why he kind of like stopped seeing him at the end of the meta last year. But he doesn't need jungle items, so he can go straight into his core. And the Gore Drinker is like the most overtuned item. It's so ridiculous. And him with Gore Drinker plus Sterix plus Death Dance, even the Spear Visage got buffed a bit. Like his items are so good. So I think that's the main issue. Is he doesn't fall off. Like, and Olaf is probably the best early game jungler, right? Like once he gets ahead, he stays ahead. So it's just very oppressive. Like, and he's good versus the meta too. I think, like, especially because Graves, I think, has kind of fallen off a little bit. He has no counters right now.
Yeah, I mean, especially Olaf top is super good, right? Right, Swift Ranger? Olaf top.
One game, man. I got griefed. Ask Dewey about griefing.
Oh, I know all about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Olaf is pretty bonkers right now though. Like that's an insane stat. Like he has the most games. Like that's an insane stat. He has not only the most games, but the highest win rate by far. Like 90.1% is pretty crazy.
Well, Nautilus sitting out here at Malphite 100%
Yeah.
win rate actually.
Yeah, that
Malphite is so broken, man.
Hey, just to clarify something, is the entirety of Cled's play rate just from Tarded?
No, I played a game.
It's
okay.
mostly from I think it's from 2 players.
Yeah, I think I played one. I don't know if it.
That
was
means
a
that
main
Tard had
game,
played the
though.
other 3. I couldn't remember if he played all 4 or not.
No,
think-
because he only played one. Because we banned it second game, so he
Mhm.
only played 3. So I think the other one is me.
Yeah, and there's a couple others that obviously have one person kind of made Victor. I think actually Happy Cloud was. I think that you played it most from this league, but I'm not
I've only
sure.
played it. Well, we've only played 2. I played it twice. Its
Yeah.
only wins, I think, actually.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, I'm not trying to bust
Wait,
it,
is
but,
that Victor win rate scuffed or what? 2 wins, 3 losses.
I mean, it's fine. 66 is. Oh wait, it is scuffed.
That's
It's
not
33.
that's not right, is it?
Yeah, it's scuffed. It's scuffed.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Victor's really good right now, but he just might be unlucky. I think he's one of the better control mages. Seeing a lot of play in LPL actually.
Yeah,
I think he's super tank. I think he's super tanky. He has a really good early game for how hard he is to deal with late. Like his early laning is really good, right? Like he can.
Yeah, he's a lane bully.
Yeah, he bullies lane, and he's also scales super hard. It's very difficult to fight him unless you have specific champions. Specific champions you need to get on top of him. Otherwise, he just stands in front of you and guns you down with E, or runs away with you with his Q.
all right.
Yeah, he's really strong. All his items got a lot better, and he also doesn't have to get his hex core anymore, which is just really nice, right? So, I mean, like I said, I think he's really rewarded for fighting early now, which before Victor, he's like, no one get near me until I have 1,200 gold and I can back and get my hex core upgrade. And now it's like, no, I need more kills because if I get any takedowns, I get one step closer to getting the laser. And yeah, so I think he's really good.
How do you guys feel about Kai'Sa? Because that's a champion that I've been seeing a ton in the meta, and obviously in CEO and pro play as well, and the lower leagues. But the win rate in CEO isn't anything spectacular, but we've seen her played a bunch. What are our thoughts on that?
I do think she eats a lot of bans, right? That's probably why she isn't even higher. I see Kai'Sa banned a lot.
She does get banned a decent amount, but I don't think
she's
crazy banned.
I think her loss rate is because I think that
Bondi played
Kai'Sa probably. Yeah, I think Kai'Sa's really strong, but I think the reason that Kai'Sa has a higher loss or high, you know what I mean, has a pretty poor win rate, is that generally Kai'Sa's not really something you first pick, so it's usually a response pick, and if you give up something like an Olaf or a Hecarim on the other side, which is generally going to be something that will happen. So on blue side, I think a lot of the drafts, or at least a lot of drafts for my teams have been the blue's gonna first pick a jungler, and then red side will take Kai'Sa,
Or Jhin.
yeah, Kai'Sa Jhin, but usually Jin's gonna be banned, right?
Yeah.
Because that is another one that a lot of people like to first pick. So it'll end up being a power pick jungler, followed by Kai'Sa as a trade on red. So kind of depends, right? I bet you a lot of those Kai'Sa losses are into Olaf. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
Yeah, but that'd be something I'd have to look at. But you're probably right. That's a good analysis. Just because anything into Olaf is pretty much doomed.
Well, yeah, apparently. You know what I mean? So I think that's probably where it happened. Either that or it was a Jhin trade. I do think she's really, really strong. But she doesn't have necessarily the utility that Jhin does. But she has damage in spades for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's absolutely insane. I mean, her pick rate and win rate are in solo queue. I think she's the most
bonkers,
picked champ in
dude.
the game.
It's 40% pick rate. Yeah, it's
52% win rate or something crazy.
It's so nuts, man.
It's actually absurd, and I think that
ADCs keep complaining, please.
I think that the thing about Kai'Sa is she is kind of like the jack of all trades AD carry. And she scales really well, and she can go multitude of items. And I do think AD carries lucked out with their mythics are probably the best, and their legendary items. So they have they kind of were the winners of the after all the buffs. I think they were definitely weak when it first came out, but after the all the everything was reworked,
Yeah, like the
They have
tank nerfs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and also like they buffed the mythics. I think Kraken Slayer, Gale Force are really strong. I think Shield Bow is good. It's probably the weakest of the three. And then all the Zeal items are really good. You have really good build paths. They have Collector, which is an insane item. Like Lethality and Crit is so strong together. And yeah, I think Kai'Sa is really good. I think AD Carry is in a good spot right now. Obviously, in solo queue, it will always feel a little worse because you have to be played around. But in competitive or customs like we're doing, I think AD Carry is really strong. So
yeah, what's interesting to me is like the CEO like list here, especially like the top of the list is very similar to what I see in like obviously solo queue, like win rates, and then also just like competitive pro play, and just like some really high win rates. But I'm kind of curious a little bit about Swift. Like I'd be curious to hear your opinion on some of the top lane meta, because like you guys started off the season, and I remember you were streamed, and it was like the funniest way to start like CEO season was like Anivia versus like Gragas top. But like Gragas has obviously like been pretty like prevalent in the meta, and he popped up a lot here.
I'll swap Anivia Pog.
Yeah, so like what do you think of like top meta? Because you've also been playing a lot of like Wukong and stuff like that, and so like obviously certain picks like Malphite and Gragas are showing up like a ton and like really strong. But do you think it's just like has to be those few picks? Because in AD carry it feels like there's just kind of like the two picks. Like you either go Jhin Kai'Sa, and then jungle feels kind of like Olaf Hecarim, and there's like or Graves really. It's like three. But like top lane, I guess top lane support feel a little bit more spread out as far as like what's strong. Like there's definitely strong picks, Alistar, Set, and whatnot. But I'd be curious to hear what your opinions are on top lane meta and like in CEO especially.
I think that for top lane, like it's kind of there's a lot of stuff that like everyone plays. You know, like everyone can play Malphite, everyone can play like Set and things like that, like Mordekaiser, and you know what I mean. Like the easier champions are like the champions that like everyone kind of, if you play top lane at a specific level, like you probably played a couple hundred games of them here or there sometime. But then there's like specialist champs that are really strong as well, like Kled with the tank build that is being played currently is like kind of stops him from being like necessarily like an early game snowball champ, because like last season played a lot of Kled, and like you basically had to get rolling in the first 4 or 5 levels to really kind of take over the game and end it quickly. But now with the new build, you're chilling, right? Like once you get to 3 items, you're so hard to deal with. You do a good enough damage. You're extremely hard to kill. Can basically 1v3, 1v4 pretty easily. So he's kind of a scaling pick now, but he is a specialist champ, right? Like unless you play quite a bit of him, you're not going to really have that much success on him. Same with stuff like Gragas. Like Arthur is an extremely good Gragas player. Stuff like Aurelia, Camille. Camille is kind of in just like a pretty broken state right now. Like she's like way too strong. You can blind pick her into almost anything. Grasp mitigates most of her poor matchups from before. It's like stuff like Renekton used to just demolish her, right? But with Grasp, you can keep it a little bit closer, even get advantages earlier without like massive skill discrepancy. But yeah, like I think that it's relatively open. Like there's some tank. I think if anything, tanks have less less variety than like carries. Like I feel like if you want to play like a carry or like a bruiser or juggernaut kind of thing, you have like 10 options that can work based on what you need, like AP, AD, more tank, less damage, more damage, less tank, that kind of thing. I think it's pretty open. But some of them have higher skill floors and like different matchup knowledge that you need, right? Yeah, so yeah, you can pretty much do whatever you want, really, depending on what your team needs.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that Camille wasn't like more prevalent in CEO, just because like Galio is so prevalent, and oftentimes like you see those two, like you play circle comp and like you just play like Camille, Galio, and whatnot. So I was definitely surprised I hadn't seen like as much Renekton and Camille, but A lot of it probably comes down to like composition and like preference. When
A lot of people are kind of sour on Renekton too. Like I think I play more Renekton than most of the other top laners. I know Arthur doesn't play him like pretty much at all. And I can't really speak to too many of the other ones 'cause I don't know him that well. But yeah, like Renekton's one of those champions that unless you're like playing to get your jungler fed, like it's not really worth it, right? Because you pretty much get in most matchups you can get like 20, 30 CS lead, maybe kill him once, but if you're playing in fives, you're not likely to get those kills. And yeah, like you're just not likely to get those kills. So your gold income and your usefulness kind of falls off. And you don't really stay that far ahead of the curve, especially in the matchups that people are going to take into it, right? They're going to take the Malphite or the Ornn and just kind of chill. They'll be fine going down 20, 30 CS. So yeah, that's kind of where that goes, why he's not necessarily picked all that much. But stuff like Camille, I mean, some teams just don't like playing with it. Like I know my team, well, I've been losing every game on Camille and solo queue, so it doesn't really count. But if we're gonna play Camille, I know my team especially, we really like to have like double engage and things like that, or like multiple ways to start a fight. So a lot of times, like I'll take stuff like a Wukong for like secondary engage, or like an Aatrox for like a flanking stat for peel or semi engage, that sort of thing. Um, so yeah, it kind of depends on what your team wants to play, like whether you need more beef, that sort of thing. At least in my experience.
For sure. Yeah. What do you guys? I kind of think I know what you're gonna say about Pantheon, but Pantheon's one of those champions that like is flexed in multiple roles right now. Primarily like support, but also going like jungle mid, and then can also play top. He falls off for sure. Like he's like definitely has early game power spikes. But I'm like kind of curious to hear your input on Pantheon, because I haven't seen him like pop up too much. I think he has like 4. I have to look at the sheet right now. But I think he has like only a few games. But like Pantheon and Set to some extent in like the support role. I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen those more.
I can speak on behalf of the Naughty Boys here, at least, for not picking it. First thing I would like to say though is I think Pantheon scaling's kind of dirty. They kind of Olafed him, right? Like he gets the Gore Drinker, like that's what they do in the LPL. The Pantheon gets the Gore Drinker, and then he's off to the races. He's set. He's a beast.
He also gets 30% armor pen for free in the late game.
Exactly. It's disgusting. And
like
when you play
worth of the item for free.
Yeah. And when you play like the dirt, like the really, really fast, like constant aggression Chinese way, then like that's great. But like my team, the only place where we could really fit in the Pantheon with the way we like to play is in the jungle. But most of the time, there's something we'd rather have, right? Like we'd rather have the Olaf or the Hecarim or the Talia if somehow it ever got through Banface, right? Like we'd be happy to pick those things instead of the Pantheon. Like if we somehow got pinched down to where Pantheon was the only option, we're not scared to play it and we're not lacking confidence of being able to win with it, but it's just not exactly our style for sure.
I think one of the things that's important to know is Pantheon's biggest strength in pro play is that he's like a quad flex. He can go in multiple positions. He usually ends up in the jungle, but the fact that he can threaten other positions is his biggest strength. And in pro play, draft is like this, game of chess. A lot of games can be won or lost in the draft, and he limits a lot of champs you can play. So I think the reason we're not seeing him as much is because that doesn't really matter as much for us. People's champ pools are more limited, and also people in amateur leagues like this are more likely to take like the hard solo queue counter pick, right? Like for instance, you can blind pick Aatrox in pro play because none of his counters are really good, but in like for instance in our league, people could whip out like the Fiora or some cheesy pick, right? And something that they is like very hard for him to play into. And I think that's why we don't see Pantheon as much. I do think he is slightly overrated. I think he's really strong in the jungle. Like I feel like Chris kind of touched on this. Like he is good from like level 2 onwards, and he is very like he can lead to a lot of aggression, and his gank setup is really nice, and you can basically kill. You can basically like just one-shot people at level 3. I do think he's still good in a solo lane too. I think his support is kind of bad now, personally. He lost a lot of the strength that makes him good. He still has his damage, but he doesn't have his tower diving, and his move speed got lower. And he's not cashing in on the free stats because those are gated by ranks of his ult. He's not supports very rarely reach like max level. So,
Yep.
But overall, I think Pantheon, and I think Taliyah is a champ that we don't see as much, but that champ is like very high presence in pro play.
Taliyah's kind of weird because she like just popped back in the meta like recently. So maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that might be just like comfortability on it. Like maybe people haven't played it as much just because she hasn't been like in the meta really for a while.
I think she's a draft round champ too. That's another reason. Like you don't just pick Taliyah. Like you can just pick Olaf. You pick Taliyah with like famously like Renekton, right? Or TF or Galio. Yeah. So she just has this like lane that she can get fed off of, and then she is your carry. Like you're picking, it's kind of like Nidalee almost, where you just pick, this is the comp we're picking Taliyah in, because Taliyah will carry if we get her ahead, because she's not only does her clear like absolutely ridiculously fast, but she scales super well. She's good from like level 3 on, very good at level 1, so you can late invade. She's just she's really strong. They like overbuffed her for sure. Her only weakness as a jungle was that she couldn't clear like super fast until she got AP, but then for some reason they're like, well, let's just remove that weakness because why not? So
yeah, I think a lot of people were whining on Reddit, but maybe it got to them eventually. But,
yeah, dude.
Yeah. Bistro kind of pointed out, I mean, like he said, just play Gragas. And that's like brings up kind of another interesting point that I see here is like the Gragas is like appearing a lot. I think he's been played support, mid, and top. I could be wrong in the mid, but I think he's been played in those 3 positions, possibly jungle instead of mid in CEO, but like doesn't have the highest win rate. Do you guys have any thoughts on Gragas? Like maybe why that champion isn't doing as well in CEO, but like is still being picked a decent amount? Because I think the champion's in a solid state right now, in as far as like solo lanes and side lanes.
I think Gragas is OP personally, but that's just me. I don't know if anyone else to talk on this. I think a lot of people just aren't like good at Gragas. They don't think he's like super easy. And then I also think
I think he has a super high he doesn't have a very low skill floor if I'm saying that right. So like the difference between somebody that's played like a ton of Gragas, especially like AP Gragas, or tank Gragas, like there is like different things that are better, right? Like there's oh gosh, what am I trying to say? There's execution, right? Like there's like big difference between like a useful Gragas and like a not useful Gragas, right? So I think that's something that has probably lends to it, dude. I can't talk.
I think a good way to say this.
Yeah, so I think that lends to it. He's just a hard champion. Like there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong when you play Gragas, and his lane matchups aren't necessarily all like super easy or anything like that. Like he can lose a lot of the bruiser matchups. He can win a lot of the bruiser matchups. It's really easy to fall behind in itemization and stuff like that. So that probably leads to it.
I do think people are sleeping on the tank build. We like only see AP in CEO, but I actually think the tank Gragas is like unbeatable in lane. Actually, like he has such overtuned sustain, and then if you max Q, you can like bully almost any melee champ while having like the ability to shove the lane and have like pretty decent lane control. And then he has great setup, and he just becomes this like tank lord. I think if anyone's been watching pro play. In NA, I think the TSM series where Huni played
wild
Gragas was actually like a great showing of how strong tank is, and I think the flexibility that he can go AP, like he can be that threat. But I think the tank Gragas is really strong, and it's good to Renekton, which is like that's the bar.
If you're into
basically.
Gragas, go watch that Huni play. I mean, I know Huni's like controversial and stuff, but go watch Huni play Gragas in that TSM series because it is like crazy execution. And yeah, it just shows you how strong sustain is in lane and like how well you can do as tank engaging and whatnot. Wild. But yeah, I mean Gragas, Galio, we've seen some of these picks not do as well, but I'm sure like these stats are gonna like pad out a little bit as far like as the season continues, and the meta kind of shifts around. Like we just saw someone say in chat that Olaf apparently got some some nerfs, so we'll see how much that hits him. But
They barely nerfed him.
yeah, it was small. I didn't look at the patch notes yet, but I'm curious to see if did Kaisa get hit?
No,
No.
Nah,
Okay.
she sells way too many
it's
skins.
an AD
man.
carry.
200 years.
Yeah,
That's another
I don't know
champ
if
that
you've seen
I think
the
you left out.
KDA
But I think
skins.
Aphelios is quite good actually, an AD carry as well. And Seraphine is a champ I think we're going to see a lot more of. I think Seraphine is like ridiculously broken.
Yeah.
She's top win rate in I think every role she's played in.
Yeah, she can flex too. Like she can go mid, or she can go support, or she can go like bot
lane.
with a caster. Like she can go with Janna, and like Soraka just got buffed, so I think she's gonna be played possibly with like Janna, Soraka, and whatnot. So we'll see if that ends up popping up. But yeah, Seraphine's definitely busted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so with that said, I guess we should. I think that unless anyone else has some final points on champions and meta stuff, we can kind of move on a little bit and talk about like your teams a little bit more and how you guys feel that it's been going. But more so, like I'm kind of curious with your teams, like as someone who's played in like the lower leagues and as someone who talks like more often to like people in commercial, in executive and in economy, I'm kind of curious like to hear about your teams as far as like tips that you could give possibly some of these lower leagues as far as like improvement goes, because we did talk about like solo queue a bit, but as far as like competitive play in fives and like maybe offering some advice, we could kind of do a discussion here as far as like improving your team, because there are a lot of new teams to the league, and I think a lot of the new teams look at you guys that have played multiple seasons of competitive fives in LBLCS and that like have gotten all these wins, do well in solo queue, and are like, hey, like they're doing something right. Like, what am I doing wrong? Or like, what is my team doing wrong? And obviously, like we can't like go like it takes a coaching role to like actually go in and look at every little thing, but maybe like some general advice on trying to improve maybe as an individual, but also as a team.
I think there's two major parts when I look at it. I think you have to, as a team, find your identity. So you can't, like me looking at 5drinks in, we can't play like the pros. Like if that doesn't fit our play style, it's not going to work for us. We're going to lose games. Like excuse me, you'll win a few here and there, right? But like you got to see what your team's good at, stick with that, and you'll win more games. And then the other big thing for me is just like team chemistry. You got to be close with your teammates. I would argue my most successful season 2 with Zelius. Like we were just all super chill and like just good friends outside of league, and that helps so much because then I don't know, the amount of flame Zelius gave to me that actually improved my gameplay is insane. So I think that helps a lot too. Those are the big two for me.
Yeah, you want to enjoy who you play with. I think that's the big thing. And then I totally agree with Evan. I think team identity and playing towards your players' strengths as opposed to away from them, it just makes it so everyone feels more comfortable, and you just have to try to find a strategy that works. And there will always have to be compromises. Like not every single player can be like the carry, but like for instance, our team, like I really enjoy and have a preference playing like more of the melee mid-style champs, and I've learned a few of the mages to help like supplement team comps, but we try to incorporate those right into our game plan. And a team like Solar Flare from last year, Downward Trend, MC Shady, he's a mid. He's like the opposite, where he likes to play like the farming style mids and scale up, and so they craft team comps around that and play around him in that way. And so it just really depends on like what your players' strengths are, identifying those, and then identifying what you could do, and then also being open to criticism. Like, I think this is more like a just we as a society type thing, but like I think a lot
My
of
God,
people,
here we go. Change in the world, man.
I
Here
think
it
a lot
is.
of people can't like take constructive criticism. You know, like
Yeah.
it's just tell it. You know, just ask your teammates like, "Damn, what am I doing wrong?" Or if your teammates like, "Dude, like you really messed up here. Like you need to do this or this or this." Like, you know, they might be heated in the moment, but it's because
Yep.
they're competitive. But just being able to take a step back and be like, "Yeah, you know, I really messed that up," or next time I'll improve, and really focusing on it is huge. And then I think VOD reviewing is really important too for the lower tier
Yeah.
team. I don't know how much lower tier teams do it, but just going over like what you consider.
Yeah, I was gonna
Alright.
actually ask about VOD reviewing, just because it's something that my teams have always done, but like I found it helpful. But I was curious how much you guys VOD review in CEO.
Insane advice here.
I have quite a bit in some teams, and then other teams like not at all. It just kind of depends on if your team is one that gets value out of it, right? So like, you know, I've been on teams where, you know, there'll be individuals or like groups of individuals who don't get anything out of VOD review, that, you know, they'll nitpick like very minute, you know, mechanical mistakes that like you're not going to change miss flashing. You know what I mean? You're not
Yeah.
going to learn to not miss flash by pointing out every time you miss flash, right? You know, stuff like that. So I've had mixed experiences. So like if VOD review is something that you get value of by saying like, you know, maybe jungle shouldn't be doing Gromp when, you know, at this timing, or, you know, this is when we could get a gank set up bot lane, but we were doing something else with mid where he's like taking a reset that necessarily wasn't worth it, right? Like went, you know, goes back to base, gets an amp tome instead of going bot and potentially getting a double kill. So like, you know, stuff like that's value, right? But like pointing out stuff like, man, you really just screwed up that trade and it pretty much lost you your lane. Okay, like, you know, that person probably knows that they messed up that trade. And like that's not really something to necessarily, in most cases, to point out or like, you know, waste time with on a VOD review, right? Like um depending on the situation, right? If you're trying to specifically work on lane phase, that's different. But if you're working as like a team from that aspect, it's really important to like point out stuff that's like team related, like things that everyone can um, look to as something that they could all have done something differently to make something a different result. I think that's really important.
So my cousin is an analyst for a pro team, and I'm not going to say the team,
Yep.
but some of my friends know.
CLG.
Nah,
Lol.
EU team. And so when we first started playing at LVLCS, I said, "Hey, bud, you want to like help us out and analyze our games with me and like do this?" And he said, "Hell, fucking no, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible." And I said, "Okay." But then we had a talk, and he's like, "I'll give you some advice on like how to review your own games." But he said, "Me reviewing your games isn't worth it, right? Because like the concepts are going to be pretty advanced."
Yep.
I said, "Okay." And the biggest thing he said is when you're VOD reviewing, don't look at like the big blatant mistakes that you know are mistakes. Kind of like what Drew said, like, yeah, for sure, you shouldn't have flashed here, or you should have been shoving mid and coming down, and like you like, stuff like that. But just look for like other things that you could have worked on as a team, like setting up, or if you get beaten, look at how the other team did something to you, right? Like look at them, be like, dang, how did they get here? Like, I don't understand. Like, how did they make this gank work? I thought we had a warded. You can see like, oh, that was really clever. They like went over the wall, right? Stuff like that I think is important. And then having fun is the other thing. Just have fun. It's a fun game. Just
Yeah.
playing League with like 5 people is so fun. Like, it's so much better than solo queue, right? It's just
Miles.
it's like how the
Yeah,
game's
I
meant to be
agree.
played.
Yeah.
I don't think that my team has said one nice thing, except for except for MZ. MZ is the nicest dude in the world, by the way. Like he will literally say nothing mean to anyone. But outside of outside of MZ, my entire team flames each other the entire game. Like I know that doesn't work for everybody. And it's not something that like, you know, I would say like encourage if it's like in being spirited. But like I'm pretty sure my bot lane says horrible like friendship ending things to each other every single game. Like no lie. So yeah, that's just like another thing on Zach's point. Like,
I mean, it
there's
depends on the
different,
vibe.
yeah, it's different. It's different personalities and getting them to work. I think one of the struggles, I meant to say this earlier when you guys were talking about like, getting teams to mesh and like struggles of keeping CEO teams together and stuff. In Diamond, especially in like higher plat and things like that, where people have played like a lot of solo queue, to different success and things like that, where most of the players that get to that level in solo queue have figured out like a specific style or a specific way that they like to play the game that works for them, right? And they just do it hundreds and hundreds of times, or you know what I mean, to get to where they are, and like that's where they find success. Um, so I think that to get like CEO players especially to kind of mesh, it's kind of difficult if that kind of clashes, right? Like a lot of people will be like, the Tryndamere top one tricks, right? Who just want to like split push all game, or like the Jax one tricks, people like that probably wouldn't mesh well with somebody that wants to play like Kassadin every game mid. Just for like extreme examples, right? There's like other like more subtle ones, like people that just really like getting ganks or like set up their lanes for ganks a lot. And, if bot lane also wants and top wants ganks, like somebody's not going to get ganks every game, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's just kind of like, they're a little bit less, like there's just more ego too sometimes, right? But, yeah, it's like one of those things where you just kind of have to find that sweet spot of like, who's willing to take like a little bit of an L to get a W, right? So like, maybe I want to play, Irelia. Well, it's not going to work in our team comp because MZ wants to play like Yone, and like that sounds like a terrible team comp, right? Without any kind of engage, well, Titan wants to play like Kha'Zix or something, like unless we all like hard stomp our lanes, it's going to be useless. We're not going to win, right? So somebody has to take the L. And that's like a really big part of like getting your team to mesh and like finding an identity and like what works for you, like what champions can you play at a good level while also enjoying it, while also supplementing what your team wants to do and what's going to get you guys the most success. I think that's like the biggest thing that my team has done recently, is kind of figured out like, okay, so what do we do good and how do we fit that together to make a team comp that'll be like really hard to beat. That I think we've done a pretty good job. We haven't played that much this week. People have been kind of busy. But yeah, I mean, like the last couple times we practiced, like we've had a ton of success. Playing specifically the style that we think is going to be really good for our team. Like it supplements all of our team's strengths, covers a lot of their weaknesses. So I think like stuff like that is really, really important.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that that you brought up, of like players that have gotten that far in solo queue kind of know how to win their way, because it's like the whole thing of like, practice 1,000 kicks one time or one kick 1,000 times. Like if you made it up to diamond, you probably practiced like one way of winning a bunch of times, and those ways of winning oftentimes may clash. So I think that's a really actually interesting perspective, because it's something that I haven't really thought of, because I'm obviously I never made it that far. But it makes a lot of sense as far as getting teams like in CEO to mesh and stick together. So I think that it's something that I'm gonna definitely watch out for, is like when those games are streamed, like see how these teams mesh. I think that's a really good point to bring up. But yeah, getting people to vibe with each other and finding the way to win for your team is definitely super important. I think that's pretty unanimous as far as like competitive vibes work, because I think every team like has to figure it out. And has to like make sacrifices to get them to win, and make sacrifices after draft or within draft too. Those are two different things sometimes.
The best advice I can give the lower elo teams. All right, Zach's gonna love this one. I don't know if Ninja Bear's in chat. There's this Australian guy. His name's Coach Curtis. He has a video on tracking the jungler. It's really not a hard concept to understand. He explains it well. Go watch it.
That video.
And then instead of actually VOD reviewing your gameplay, toggle Fog of War. Learn to track the enemy jungler. Once you can do that, start getting wards in to, confirm your theories of where the jungler is. Sorry. And then once you do that and you get good at it, well, now if you think the jungler's top side, get a ward to confirm, and then go do the dragon or go do the rift or whatever. Just try to play on the opposite side.
Yeah. That was like one of those things that our team had to like kind of figure out when we first started playing like competitive fives. Is like basically me playing the role of like just asking, "Hey, where's jungle?" and like having everyone talk about it. And just like facilitate, like finding someone that can like just facilitate that conversation like in the game was like something that was like really mind blowing. And for us, like just trying to figure it out, we were like started doing that, and it worked so well. Like in the games, like all of us are trying to track the jungle, and then keep that conversation going throughout it, especially like the early game was like super important. Yeah. And I've watched that video. It's good. Coach Curtis is actually pretty awesome.
Shout out to Coach Curtis. I love all his videos are so good. Even if you don't agree with like the concepts, the amount of time he puts into like free content is awesome. His Victor guide that he just came out with is like so in depth, and he actually puts in a lot of games on the champs before.
Do you guys have any like shout outs to other, because I really like Coach Curtis, and I definitely have a few people I specifically like to learn from. Do you guys have any other like shout outs to different like streamers or players that you find like helpful for maybe people that are trying to improve at League?
I'm gonna shout out Tyler One. He helps me control my anger.
Okay, come on. Okay. Helps you control your anger.
Be a better person.
Oh god.
I do. Before we get into that, I just want to give a quick heads up. We got about 5 minutes left till I gotta wrap this up, and I got a match.
Oh yeah, we are wrapping it up. So I was gonna.
Yeah, I do like.
If you're a top laner, you'd watch Lorlo. Like I like he plays a lot of like higher skill cap champions, and he does a pretty good job of like not even necessarily all higher skill cap. He basically tries the meta. Like he'll basically play pro style top laners, and he usually talks pretty well about like what he's doing and like why he's doing it. Like he memes a little bit, but he's pretty fun to watch. He's a funny guy. Duos with Quantum, it was really fun to watch.
Whippo
Whippo's a really good one
he
as well.
Stream often, but when he does, I know that's Arthur's favorite top lane.
Whippo's a good one.
I think I use Dominus Replay and just those replay things and just watch high elo VODs a lot. I like Coach Curtis for like the concept videos a lot. And any of those coaching concept videos I try to watch, but I think just watching how like if I play Yone into Zed and I get my shit kicked in and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna go watch a video of how the high elo person played it, and you can see like I think that's super important. And then I just watching it's not available right now, but when ProView was a thing, I think ProView is so good.
Dude, I loved ProView. I watched literally every single Worlds game.
Yeah.
So good, dude.
Whippo streaming right now if you're a top laner, by the way, just so you guys know. But yeah, I think before we end, I know we only have like 5 minutes or whatever. Can we do player shout outs? Because I want to shout out some players.
Yeah, any other shout outs can happen right now. Shout out a player, shout out content.
I want to shout out Cause X, the support for the Naughty Boys. I think this dude is absolutely cracked and it is like so oppressive to play against. And like honestly, I think the Naughty Boys played better than us as a whole for sure, but like just playing against him, I felt like he is just like on another level compared to any support in the league that I've played against so far. Like his vision control is so good. He plays the engage style really well. I know we should have probably banned the Rel in game 2, but like because I knew that was he's gonna pick, and I wanted the Leon or Alistar. But yeah, shout out to Quaz. Like I think he is so good. And then the names escape me. I think it's like Yukio or something, the mid laner for CLG. I think he's really good. Clearly Lag Gaming. I haven't got to see him yet, but I do think he's pretty good. Or we haven't seen him. I don't think their team's been streamed, but through scrims and just watching like. I think I spectated a game of theirs once. He's a pretty good player, so that's a mid lane shout out.
If it's any solace to you, Zach, the Rel pick wasn't decided until Cause had like 2 seconds left on his timer, and he said, "Yeah, I think this might actually be a Rel game."
Dude, we picked Sylas because you had Hecarim, and I knew you were gonna. I didn't think you were gonna pick anything that Sylas was like necessarily bad into. I thought maybe we could have banned Ryze. But I was like, I can play the matchup, that's fine. But I was like, okay, well, he has to go Leon or Alistar here. And then after we banned, I was like, shit, Rel's open. And Rel ult is okay on Sylas, but it's not as good as like Alistar ult for sure. So,
dude, imagine going into that ban phase, picking a split pusher into triple hard engage. Crazy.
My
Well,
top laner, Arthur
with
Dent.
that- Yeah, want to shout out.
Oh, sorry.
Well, with that said, we do have Goons versus Four Drinks In coming up live in 12 minutes. So we are going to try to sign off right here and now. I would like to thank all of you for joining. This is a great cast or a great podcast. I'm really glad we got to have the old Dunk podcast in.
Oh
in
yeah,
here.
I just realized. Oh my
that was
god,
fun.
yeah, it's the squad.
The squad is back. So thanks for the reunion, guys. Thanks for hopping in, talking some CEO, and like giving some advice. And then we will get to watch Ev Dingus play tonight at 8 p.m. So in 11 minutes. And Buggleberry and I will be casting that with
Good luck,
possibly-
Evan.
Good luck to the other team.
Yes, others. So
Wait.
good luck, both of you. Thanks for hopping in, guys. And we'll sign off here.